Rock and roll has always been known for its expressive, rebellious, and sometimes wild behavior. But the 1980s took rock and roll to a whole new level. Big hair, glamorous costumes, and amazing guitarists led musicians to their peak of success and artistic expression. But in 1985, a new trump card arrived, leaving musicians oppressed and their ideas censored. What could one do but fight for their right to party? This is the story of a never-ending fight. A fight for freedom of speech. This is a musician's battle. This catastrophe started when Mrs. Tipper Gore and her daughter Sarah listened to Darling Nikki by the artist Prince. Gore was appalled by the lyrics. Not only did she decide to refuse to buy her daughter any more Prince albums, she also became a leader of the Parents Music Resource Center, also known as the PMRC. The PMRC was formed in 1985 by some of the government's most powerful women, such as Tipper Gore, Pam Hauer, and Susan Baker. Together, they made the lifestyles of rockers diminish. The goal of the PMRC was to stop parents from buying certain albums that they considered vulgar. Mothers in America gave this organization enough publicity to make it a danger to the careers of many musicians. Though many small bands were worried, the popular bands had no fears at first. It wasn't until the Filthy 15s came out when worries in popular bands ignited. The Filthy 15 was a list of very popular artists and the reasons you should not buy their songs. This list helped spark the attention of the government, and even made officials such as Governor Buddy Roemer turn their heads to the PMRC's beliefs. The Filthy 15 was a crucial event that brought officials of the government into heated arguments about the limits on the sales of albums. While some hid in fear, a few musicians requested a hearing with the people of the government and the PMRC. This wish was granted, leaving the PMRC and musicians such as Dee Snider, John Denver, and Frank Zappa at a debate. This debate would be broadcasted across America on September 19, 1985. The debate reigned strong, and convincing arguments were made by both sides. Many from the PMRC argued that their children were at risk for violent tendencies and other aggressive factors. As Pam Hauer said, quote, "Anything delivered through music can be pretty powerful." But the musicians made persuasive arguments of their own. One of their main representatives was Dee Snider from the iconic rock band Twisted Sister. Mr. Snider shocked the Senate with his witty mouth and rough appearance. Though one might think the contrary of his language, he was wise and well-worded. He made many good points, such as said here.
The beauty of literature, poetry, and music is that they leave room for the audience to put its own imagination, experiences, and dreams into the words,
revealing his appreciation for exploitation in young adolescents. Snider made people see a different side to the PMRC. John Denver also made many valid points. However, his opinions were quite shocking. John Denver was believed to be on the side of the PMRC due to his music being considered calm. However, he also fought against music censorship. In the end, in spite of the musicians' tactful arguments, they had no chance. Before the Senate hearing had ever started, the music industry compromised by establishing a parental advisory sticker. This sticker was formed by the music industry and, to this day, is completely voluntary. It did not prevent kids from buying music, but did alert parents that there might be objectionable material. Musicians throughout the country were outraged, especially at the fact that they had no chance of proving the PMRC wrong. Dee Snider, in an interview with Rolling Stone magazine, shows his disappointment. He says, quote, "We rolled in there, and I was told that they already agreed to a modified sticker. It hadn't been announced, but it was done," revealing his hopelessness for his protest. Gore also expressed herself after the compromise through her own book called PG Kids Raised in an X-Rated Society. In the book, Gore complains about the sticker and how it lacked follow-through. She wanted more and made the book in an attempt to explain why more control was needed. She used quotes from rock artists such as Blackie Lawless, who said, quote, "I like to drink blood out of a skull and torture females on stage." This quote, though an obvious form of satire, was used to fight for more control and also more oppression of the art. Her book, though very popular, was unsuccessful. In fact, more anger arose. Though some were content with their hard work, many were still upset. Album purchasing skyrocketed as rock and roll did with new musicians getting popular, like Bon Jovi and Red Hot Chili Peppers. Due to complaints, many record labels refused to put these parental advisory stickers on rock albums. This was acceptable because advisory stickers were not mandatory, and to this day, still aren't. Though Tipper Gore fought through thick and thin, her commands were not accepted. Though this compromise seems small, the impact is much greater. This compromise affected musicians across the country. At first, all was unsuccessful for the musicians. Walmart started refusing to sell anything with an advisory label. This was not a one-time occurrence either. It had happened throughout the years and even has affected bands such as Green Day, when the album American Idiot was refused to be sold throughout Walmarts across the country. Stores like this led to fear in many artists, which led to many censoring themselves and therefore being abstained from free speech. After some time of what looked like a loss for musicians, things started to turn around. The compromise eventually created a larger demand for the rebellious side of music, which brought smaller bands into the spotlight of places such as small bars. Places like these were the beginning for many popular rock bands around the time, such as Beastie Boys, Violet Femmes, and Murphy's Law, who later got their big break. As for the older, more popular bands and groups such as Twisted Sister, Scorpions, and Led Zeppelin grew, publishing more albums and going on an abundance of tours. In fact, the older bands such as Led Zeppelin and AC/DC grew tremendously due to their vintage vibe and rebellious lyrics. Of course, as rock began to thrive once more, Tipper Gore's opinions were less valued, leading to her role in music to diminish. The compromise affected the children most of all. As we all know, most teenagers seem to be born to rebel. Knowing this, it makes sense that some teens were going behind their parents' back and buying defiant albums. This music also embraced a sexual revolution that went on through the 1980s and gave many groups such as the LGBT a voice in society. Seeing all of these impacts shows an importance in this conflict, and yet as we go closer to the present, these impacts seem to diminish. Language and sexuality are more prevalent in today's lyrics. This compromise paved a new road for songs like Straight Outta Compton and The Bleeding. It has also led an evolution from classic rock to modern-day music. Though the music industry has grown, the caution and advisory stickers have actually had no effect. Many people have ceased using CDs due to the advancements in technology, allowing apps such as Spotify, Pandora, and iTunes to thrive. In fact, one article from iTunes even exposed their absence of advisory due to their store being incapable of finding the difference between the clean and explicit versions of a song. This has affected children. Children now have become more desensitized to sexual and violent phrases because of how popular they've become. The compromise did nothing but damage the future children that will soon be our presidents, lawyers, and doctors. In the end, it is clear that the compromise was wasted and only benefited artists more. It ended up being a failed compromise that is now only reminisced upon by the people who were teens in the 1980s. Come on!